of the 1-star gyms are actually pretty good. We're going to be talking about the winners and losers. We're going to be talking about all of the 1-star gyms in this video. Consider subscribing to the video and liking it to help me out. Thank you so much. Let's get going with the video today. So I'm going to go through these. There's a good amount of 1-star gyms, so we're going to go through this as quick as we can. The Black Rose is more of a PvP type of gym. It's going to be mostly used on melee-based classes, and it's used to add a little bit more CC when you're getting in there, getting on top of people and they hit you, immobilizing the people around them. This is used, like I say, mostly in PvP in order to deal essentially a way of having sort of additional CC and keep locked on top of somebody when you're in melee class. Nightmare is sort of the same type of deal because when you have a chance to defeat an enemy, you cause other nearby enemies to flee, but that's more of a PvE ability than it is a PvP ability. So this gym, what it's going to do is help you get in the middle of a pack, CC the other people so you don't receive as much damage when you're melee. I'm thinking things like Barbarian, Crusader, Monk would come to mind for this type of gem. I don't think it's fantastic because at the rank 3, what it does is increases damage you deal with the targets inflicted with fear, and there's not many people that have fear. For instance, the Necromancer has to have the Proximal Fear Pants and the Wraith Form in order to even have fear. It's not that common in a move, so I don't necessarily like this gem that much. However, the Berserker's Eye is a gem that I absolutely love. Highly, highly recommended, okay? This gem right here is better than gems that give more resonance and more combat rating. It gives increased damage and it gives increased crit rate. These are basically the best 2 stats in the game. You want both of these stats. Yes, you receive more damage, but you increase the damage you deal, and this is an offensive type of game. Berserker's Eye is actually very fantastic, and especially in PvP, where 66% of your stats are gathered from the legendary gems, this one is going to continue to give you some bonus stats, okay? You're going to be able to get the increased damage and all of that. You're still going to get, even though it's a nerfed percentage of it, it's still quite important, okay, in my personal opinion. All right, I think Berserker's Eye, I think it was Veldshot that actually did the actual math on this and realized that this gem here in particular is so strong that it is worth having less resonance and less combat rating just to get the passive effects. And I forget the exact numbers on this one off the top of my head, but Veldshot's got a really good video on just the Berserker's Eye in particular. And so this is probably the best 1-star gem out of all of them. And if you get this one, you definitely can max it out all the way. I've had this one all the way to rank 10 myself and I've tried it maxed out. I definitely think it's a good gem. And also if you're trying to awaken a piece of gear, I think this is the gem you're going to want to take all the way up to max rank. Now, Pain of Subjugation here, you deal increased damage to enemies suffering loss of control. So you might see the pairing of things like the Nightmare. If you didn't know, loss of control is often referred to as total loss of control, meaning things like fear and stun or total loss of controls and knockups, etc. are not. And this is dealing increased damage to people that have the loss of control. If you look at this, decreases all damage you take while suffering loss of control on your character. So eventually, or essentially it's the yin yang for the loss of control. I don't really like things that do something only when something else is doing something. So for the most part, I don't like this gem. But I think if you are going with a mostly maxed out type of CC build, there is something to be said for it. But again, I don't like the fact that they have to be crowd control or loss of control in order for me to actually do anything with this gem. Now, the Respite Stone, it gets quite a bad rap for most people. Decreases all damage you take by a certain percentage after a certain percentage of your life. Increases up to a maximum of a certain percentage. And then here you can see you gain increased armor while your life is below 50%. I think some people say it's a PvP gem. I kind of see it more as a PvE type of gem. Maybe if you were trying to do something a little bit more survivable in melee form. I don't really like this gem. I find it to be one of the worst ones because all it really does is give you survivability but no additional damage. So I'm not really a huge fan of that. Moving on to the Invigoration here, increasing the speed of your primary attack and increases your primary attack damage. I like this if you have a good primary attack. For instance, the Necromancer have a good ranged primary attack. I could see this being quite good on things like Demon Hunter, quite good on maybe like a Barbarian who is using Frenzy, for instance. I could see this being pretty good for single target type of DPS. So I don't think this one is completely terrible. You can also get it out of the Hilt Trader, so it is not too hard to max this one one out. Now, if we go to the Zod Stone, increases the duration of your ultimate skills and the damage done by your ultimate. So maybe this pairs well with the previous gem, the Invigoration, that we were just talking about, where the Invigoration is helping you do your basic attack more, and the more basic attacks you do, the quicker you're charging your ultimate. So because of that, the two kind of pair well together. It's not a bad gem. Now, Everlasting Torment, in my opinion, is one of the other best gems right next to the Berserker's Eye. I think these are the two real big winner of the gems, both the Berserker Eye and the Everlasting Torment. Now, Everlasting Torment is going to deal damage over time whenever you crit, so obviously it's going to pair well with the Berserker's Eye, and for that reason, you're going to get more additional damage, okay? But if you know, this increases your attack speed for each enemy inflicted with agony. Attack speed goes for all the moves, not just the primary attack. So in addition, it is quite good. Okay, it's really quite good, and it pairs really well with the Berserker's Eye. Also, if you didn't know, Everlasting Torment is a way that you can get around some problems with the Necromancer. So currently, the Necromancer, the summons don't proc the Seeping Bile and all of their abilities. For instance, like the Laser Mage one seems to, but all of the other variants don't proc Seeping Bile. But if you have Everlasting Torment, the damage done from Everlasting Torment can proc the DPS from the Seeping Bile. So for that reason, Everlasting Torment can actually be quite a good addition as well if you have Seeping Bile. So moving on here to the Defiance. So each time you block, you deal a base damage plus additional damage to all nearby enemies, decreases all damage you take for a certain amount of time after blocking. I actually think this one is sort of not terrible. It's not as great as the other ones. I know it, people keep telling me to clean my microphone. You know I will. I got a lot of lint on it. I'll get to that. But I don't think this one is that terrible. In my personal opinion, I think that base damage plus a certain amount of damage is all right, but it's going to be better damage the higher resonance you are, and obviously you're going to have lower resonance if you're using 1 stars, and if you're using 1 stars, you probably don't have that high of resonance and damage anyway. So in my own personal opinion, it's good, not great. It's definitely more of a melee-based gem, in my personal opinion. Freedom and Devotion is one of the other good gems. So increases the duration of your summons and increases the damage by your summons. Both of these are good things. So this is something that this would be a well gem if there was like a 5-star version of this that could give us higher combat rate and resonance, because these are both stats that we like to see, including the duration of your summons. So things like the Monk and the Necromancer have really good summons, and having them last longer can give you enough uptime on them that you can have like 100% uptime, for instance. So I really think that this is a gem that is potentially slept on, that it can actually be quite good. Chain Death is interesting. Increases damage done by your attacks per target hit. Basically, what this one is going to, and then you at the rank 3, it increases how many of maximum targets. So essentially what this does here is if you are clearing packs, it lets you kind of go through and clear packs better. I think it's a little bit better in the Challenge Rift as well. I think it's better than some of the other 1-star gems, but it's not an amazing gem because it doesn't really do anything in PvP. This is mostly just a PvE gem, whereas the Freedom and Devotion maybe can help in both PvP and PvE. The Chain Death, for instance, is really more just PvE, but it's not a terrible gem. I mean, it's better than some of the other, like I'd rather have a Chain Death than I would rather have a Defiant Soul if I was a ranged hero, whereas maybe I want a Defiant Soul if I was a melee hero. Okay, so moving on to the Mocking Laughter. If you look at the Mocking Laughter, primary attacks forces non-elite monsters to attack you for 2 seconds and decreases all damage you take by monsters affected by Mocking Laughter. I don't like this one at all. I think maybe you could use this if you're like a Whirlwind Barbarian and you're pushing Challenge Rifts, but it seems like in such a niche area that I would have to use this one, that I'm not excited by this at all. If you move on to Sullied's Weakening, this is one I'm excited by. Increased damage for 60 seconds after killing an elite monster, and increases all damage you deal to elite monsters. So I actually don't mind this one, because if you're going from elite pack to elite pack, that is a viable strategy for hunting Challenge Rifts, and because of that, if you're Challenge Rift pushing, this is one of the only 1-star gems that actually helps you with 1-star pushing, and one of the only gems that actually gives us good, consistent, solid DPS in PvE, so you can use it. Which brings us to the last one here, which is the last but not least, which is the Trickshot gem. And your channeled skills consume energy slower and decreases damage you take while using a channeled skill. So this can be something great on something like Whirlwind Barbarian. It can also be alright if you're using stuff like Bone Spirits on the Necromancer, or more of a Disintegrate on the Mage, for instance. Anyone that's really going to be maxing out your channeled abilities. I think it's one of the better 1-star gems, because channeled skills that consuming energy slower can be quite good, considering that things like the Whirlwind you're always waiting on the energy, it felt like for me. So having additional or it's not really additional energy, but having the energy last longer would be quite good. But really decreasing the damage you take while using the challenge skill, I could see that pretty good. And you could compare that with a bunch of these where it's like you have that one plus the respite stone, okay, and then you have when you block, you're dealing more damage, and you decrease the damage you block. So you could see where you could pair some of these to become quite tanky if that's the type of build you're trying to go. I definitely think the real big winner out of all of these is the pairing of Berserker Eye with Everlasting Torment. And then if you have Summons Freedom and Devotion, those are going to be like my top 3. And then Weakening kind of coming in as a 4th for that elite monster DPS. All right, these are all the 1-star gems rated. Let me know what you think about the 1-star gems, if you're using them and where you're using them. Thank you so much for subscribing if you did on this channel, or liking the video if you did on this one as well. Love y'all, and I'll see you on the next one.